Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome back, Queen Bee Brandy herself. How we doing?
Well, I'm good. I'm coming off of a hosting weekend. So, it's the first Monday back is a little, we're just settling in a little bit, trying to regain the energy.
For sure. Who was in town? Was it family, friends?
Friends, it was one of my friends' 30th birthdays. And so people came in from Boston, and it wasn't like super wild, but you're just organizing things, later nights. So
For sure.
Yeah.
A busy weekend. A very busy
weekend. How about you?
Yeah. We got some snow here in Denver on Friday night through most of Saturday. So kind of had a chill day, not going to lie. But then I also was motivated to go run in the snow, which was
Nice.
I think I sent you guys something in our group chat where I was feeling a little ambitious after I ordered my 20-pound workout vest that I'm also going to be using on runs. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, pretty chill weekend. Had a great Sunday. Got to watch some football, do a little bit of work, a little bit of clean, a little bit of cooking, a little bit of relaxing.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm loving like this non-travel routine,
I know. I have one next week. We're going to Mexico City for Max's birthday. And then after that, I think I have unless something pops up, which they're good, I should be in one place for a little bit, which is always nice. And I'm also trying to get back into running. So my goal is to run 2 or 3 5Ks every week. So we'll see. Now that I've put it out into the ether, I have to. You can hold me accountable.
You just had 3.8 million people hear that, basically. Good luck. Hopefully they'll keep you accountable. But no, I'll help you keep accountable too. I'm not trying to make this a New Year's resolution type thing. It's all right, new lifestyle, new habits. So I'll be there right by your side, Miss Brandy.
Well, that's actually, people give New Year's resolutions a lot of crap, but I think that it's nice if some people, don't follow through, but even if you make a list of goals for an upcoming year and you achieve one of them, or it gets you on the path, I think there's nothing wrong with trying to reset, your lifestyle or whatever it is that you're doing. So,
but goals without execution are just dreams. So execute.
That is true. Exactly.
Well, before we get into the meat of the episode, I wanted to give some shout outs here on the pod, which we rarely do. But I ordered this amazing new book because I'm on a little bit of a reading spree. More to announce on that and the reason why later this year. But want to give our very own Steve Turk a shout out for his new book, Hospitality Unlocked. You can get it on Amazon. It's an amazing collection of Steve's podcast interviews from his Hospitality Mentor podcast. And the way it's structured is actually really cool because it gives you background and education on the story of the person he interviewed and had on the pod. So it's a little bit of storytelling, but then there's actually practical advice and step-by-step execution on a certain subject or topic that they covered. And it's really nice. It's actually kind of a refreshing blend of content. So shout out to Steve. Great job on the book. And I also want to give one more shout out. You can't see it on my background here, but Amber Carpenter actually recommended a book box collection basically about building products and product teams and all this cool stuff. And I know I'm not really a product guy, but I really enjoy that conversation and that kind of content. And I've been loving it. So shout out to you two for 1, a good book recommendation, and 2, a great written book. But Brandy, I'm curious, you're a bookworm. What are you reading these
Yeah.
days?
So I'll have to get some of my nonfiction suggestions from you. I'm a big fiction girl.
Okay.
I just finished reading Pachinko, which is this like
Mm.
saga of a Korean family from like the early 1900s through the 1990s, and it's probably one of
Wow.
my favorite books I've ever read. It's so incredibly written. I absolutely cried in public a couple times. Like it's some of it, like it's the ups and downs of this family's like journey. So
Oh,
they're like the
yeah.
downs. Like sometimes you're like, oh my god, but it's an incredibly beautiful book. And yeah, so I just finished that. So waiting for my
Mm.
next kind of my TBR, my to be read book list is there's a stack on the nightstand. So one of my, I mean, speaking of New Year's goals, I usually have a book going in Spanish as well. And last year I didn't do that. So
Wow.
I bought a couple more books to like be reading. Obviously have to think more than when I'm reading in English. So,
Yeah.
but recommitting to that this year.
For the listeners who are new to the show, I don't know if you know this, but Brandy is very fluent in Spanish. You took basically all of your college in Spanish, right?
Yeah, the second half was all in
Yeah,
Spanish.
insane. I don't know how you do it, but we also couldn't have survived Barcelona and the Scale show without Brandy, so I'm actually very thankful.
Yeah, it comes in
Totally worth it.
handy.
Totally worth it. Glad you did.
Well,
I'm
if
glad you
anyone
picked that up.
yeah, me too. Well, if anyone has any good book recommendations,
Yes.
throw them in the comments. We'd love to hear what the audience is thinking of reading this year.
100%. 100%. And let's address the elephant in the room before we continue on our docket of
Mm.
agendas. We're missing a third co-host, right? So,
He had better
you,
plans today.
100%. Michael Golden apparently, had to like actually be a founder and go do stuff outside of his Auburn, Alabama hometown. So he's on the road doing a big thing. So we're excited for him. He's having some important meetings. One of these, I think he's having coffee with Steve Schwab. So for the listeners who are still waiting on this exclusive breaking news interview with GMH and Steve Schwab about the Vacasa acquisition, stay tuned. We have a lot of red tape to go through until the company is private again. So we're not forgetting that we've announced it and left you hanging. It's coming.
It's the
It's just a lot of red tape.
anticipation. Exactly.
Yes,
It'll be a
100%.
fun surprise.
100%. And also today is MLK Day. So shout out to an amazing historic leader in our country who really stepped up and showed leadership outside of the barriers that he was confined in his time. Shout out for that because I think it's super important. And then also today is an important day as we're witnessing history as Americans seeing President Trump take office again. So whether or not you voted for him, it's still an important historic day that we all get to witness, whether it's a candidate of your choice. But I know it's going to be probably a little slow. We had some, I don't think the biggest news cycle this week. So we're only covering two
Yeah.
stories due to probably a lot of political movement happening in the country. So very, very light schedule. But we have two stories that I want to cover, and we saw this constantly popping up in, I would say, social media, obviously, like on Instagram, LinkedIn. It's constantly a thing, and we even covered it on a kind of a special episode with the LA wildfires. But before we get into that full story, just a shout out to our sponsors at Fido. Last week, we covered that they acquired Bin Better in North Carolina, which was the biggest bin to curb service in that state for short-term rental operators. And now we also get to cover that they're waiving their bin to curb cost or fee for anyone impacted by the California wildfires. And I think this is just a great example of why we love partnering with great companies in the space, because they do the right thing when it's hard. They do things that aren't economically beneficial to them. And I just think they deserve a well-deserved shout out. So for anyone in that area, if you are in North Carolina, obviously get with them, but in LA and California, go to getfido.com. You can reach out to the team, tell them that you heard about it on GMH, and they'll take great care of you. I promise that. Like Justin and the whole team have just been so great to work with. They're the partnership that I know Brandy knows I've always wanted, because they actually like want to work with us on the content and support the listeners. So anyways, big shout out to them before we keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you can see like sometimes you wonder as like a company of when some of these things happen, like, okay, what can you actually do right now? Like been as impactful. And so that it's great to see them
100%.
helping out.
100%. All right. So Brandy, speaking of the LA wildfires, here is our first topic, which is Airbnb is cracking down on price gouging during this time of crisis. There's an article that came out on Skift. We'll make sure it's linked in the show notes for everyone who is on the podcast version and not the live. But I want to get your thoughts before we, fully unpack it. But I think, I'll stop there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good, obviously a good move. I mean, there's some people, obviously, when you have a supply and demand, simple economics, someone might say like the market dictates, blah, 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 blah. But I think you have to have like moments of humanity. And like, if you have all these families, like thousands of people that are looking for homes, and they've just lost, everything. And so it's like, let's have some compassion. And, Airbnb.org, we've worked with them in the past. And it's just, Airbnb is such a behemoth that they actually do have the financial ability and like the logistical ability to make these decisions and like have a big impact. So I think it's great. And yeah, it's a really delicate situation all the way around. And I know that some hosts feel that in these situations that Airbnb oversteps and like determines how they can run their business. But, they didn't say that you couldn't raise your prices at all. It's just preventing someone from like raising it something crazy and really taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, to give some details from the article. So price gouging in California, at least as a state, is illegal to increase your pricing publicly or privately more than 10% during an emergency or time of crisis, which this is considered as, the governor signed a executive order stating that this is indefinitely a crisis in California. So anything increasing over 10%. And what Airbnb did, to give a little bit more specifics too, is Airbnb stopped or has blocked any hosts in that area from LA and I think also Beverly Hills from increasing their rates above 10% of their last listed rate. And so they get an error message when they try to increase. So to anyone listening, that's why Brandy said the host can get a little upset that it's an overreach, right? But I think to the point there, I think this is a great short-term solution to prevent that, to kind of control the chaos, because I can only imagine the emotional stress and duress that is happening in the city, not only of those who have lost everything, but also to those who basically are trying to figure out how to handle the situation from an operations standpoint, right? And for the people on the live view, I do know that Brandy dropped off, Wi-Fi issues, so we will be back here shortly together. But anyways, moving on. So I think it's a great short-term solution, but the kind of point being made, I think from a long-term perspective, is I hope we don't see platforms like Airbnb do this in non-crisis times and non-emergency issues, because then that's when we start to see the true evil dark side of control or power from OTAs or companies that are behemoths like Airbnb. So that is where we're at, and I don't know where Brandy is. So we're going to continue on. There's a couple of shout outs that I can actually give to Jeff from Host GPO. There she is. Great.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Literally my whole computer just crashed. So apologies. This is what happens when we are in real time. Things happen.
I was like, okay, I guess I guess I'm running solo here as Paul goes slick talk solo on GMH.
Oh my God.
So good. But yeah, we have one question actually for you, Brandy. Do you need me to catch you up on what I was just stating? Maybe.
You know what? Keep going. We're doing it live.
Okay. Well, I was basically saying it's great short-term solution, but long-term, I think this is scary for anyone, right? To see the power that Airbnb can execute at any time in a non-emergency situation. Not saying that they will, but it's always something like they showed their cards in an emergency situation in a time of need, which is great. But now, if we see this in the future, we're going to be it's going to be pure chaos on their end. So I don't know if you have any
I
thoughts.
mean, yeah, I mean, I think during COVID, we saw this where there was just they just refunded everyone without even like
100%.
warning to hosts. And I mean, that was I remember the day when we literally like, I don't know, $500,000 just like left our account.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It was just so much money. But I don't think that there's a huge risk of them doing this in a non-emergency situation because of exactly what you're talking about. Like, it would just be
For sure.
so chaotic that and they could potentially open themselves up to, like, lawsuits and things like that. When it's an emergency situation, a force majeure, something like that, like, they have that built in as, like, the right for them to do. So I would
Mhm.
be but, I mean, it does show, like, you shouldn't have any one reliance on one OTA. Like, that's you
Which
it's which also nicely goes into another topic we're gonna talk about, but it just shows but to be fair, any of the other OTAs would probably do something similar. Like, there was similar kinds of policies, so I don't think they would just randomly one day be like, "Okay, now no one can
yeah,
raise their prices more than 10%." But the way that they kind of put pressure on the pricing side is with people that use their pricing algorithm,
Mhm.
if they do that, or, they favor homes that have more competitive rates. So
Yeah.
there's other ways of influencing the pricing without directly saying you can't raise it more than this.
The thing that gets me though on that is that the error message that pops up when someone does try to increase their rate more than 10%
Mhm.
in this situation, it just says like error, sorry, try again later or something like that, right? Like
Oh,
it's a
it
very
doesn't say what it is.
exactly. And it's not them being honest. So I think that's the part that scares me is like they could do that anytime. I can go into
Yeah.
Airbnb today and they can automatically like, oh, sorry, like we're having a little glitch. Can't increase your pricing right now. We'll come back later in 5 minutes or try whatever. Um, so I don't know. That for me is where it gets tricky because they can state or it could be done privately and look like it's a technical issue. Um, and not be called out versus like when you log onto a platform like TikTok, which was banned for less than 12 hours, they had a clear statement like, hey, we were banned in the country. Please come back when we try to figure out the situation, right? Like it's very open,
Yeah.
very honest, very clear versus Airbnb's way was, oh, come back later. Kind of
Yeah, well,
a
and it
missed
kinda goes,
opportunity.
like, with any messaging, and we've seen this, whenever they make a change or when like, there's been changes that Vrbo's made that the hosts weren't happy about, like, the way that that was communicated or other OTAs. It's really all about the communication and, like, giving advance
100%.
warning. Like, just send literally every host a message that's like, "Here's what's going on in LA if you try to raise your prices," or whatever. Like, they
100%.
certainly have the technological ability to do.
Especially if it's an illegal, like it's a passed law in in the state of California. Like it is illegal to price gouge. It
Mm.
like you will get prosecuted for this. So like that should just be their crutch. Like why not use that to your advantage and blame the
Yeah.
government as the bad guy? Like
I know it does seem I mean, Airbnb is really good at, like, weathering any sort of, negative PR storm, but it's like, you have an out, like, you don't
yeah,
have to like,
you have
you
a
don't
get
have
out
to
of jail
take
free
it.
card. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. One question that we got on YouTube, and Brandy, I'll fully let you answer this because I know this is something that's popped up a couple times. But the question is from Depeck. The question for Brandy: how does Romy differ from Airbnb? And I can't wait for this answer.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do get this question a bit. And so you have to think of Airbnb as a marketplace, right? So it's, Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo, Expedia, those are all marketplaces where you can sell your product. And so Romy is an operator. We have our own website, but we are the supplier of that product. So that's the difference. Like, Airbnb is one of the mechanisms with which you can sell the product, but we are the one selling the product. They're just a vehicle, a marketplace for doing so.
100%. So Airbnb isn't cleaning the Romy properties. Romy's cleaning the
Mm-mm.
Romy properties.
Yeah, and I think that's actually for people that, um, who aren't super in the weeds in the short-term rental industry, and, you know, Airbnb is just a brand. And I think it's also very similar to like the Kleenex situation. Like Kleenex is a brand, but because it got so big, it's just like synonymous with, tissue paper or whatever. So it's like, that's the same thing. Same with what are the rollerblades, jacuzzi, those are all brands, but now they just are synonymous with the actual product.
100%. Could have said it better myself. And going into the spicy topic of today, which I'm considering spicy. Spicy. We should. I know for inside kind of track, but the listeners should know this is kind of funny. Leo, our host, one of our hosts on the European crew, loves to call interviews hot takes. He's like, "Oh, dude, I love the hot take that you had with Verid from Guesty when they acquired what's the Rentals United and all this other stuff." And I was like, what does he mean like hot take? Like I didn't give an opinion. I just asked her some questions about the deal. Like a hot take's like an opinion, kind of like a counter culture or whatever. And that was in my head. And so he loves calling them hot takes. And so now we're all like playing with this term of like hot takes on GMH where we're gonna do so like maybe we have the intro be like spicy.
Well, it's interesting. Like a hot take is supposed to be like a differing opinion,
For sure.
So yeah, we'll see. But let's lead us in, Will. Let's hear the spice.
All right. So TikTok was banned for, I would say, less than 24 hours. I'm not going to get super in the weeds on how long, but the ripple effect that people are talking about in terms of travel and hospitality. So the government is pushing a ban on TikTok due to concerns around national security, requiring BitDance or ByteDance to divest or face the ban by technically on Sunday, but now President Trump is going to extend that by 90 days, giving them an opportunity to find a proper buyer in the U.S. to ensure that those national security concerns are no longer an issue. Now, I want to start off with saying this, and I want to make sure the listeners and anyone who may take what I'm about to say out of context, I'm against banning a platform like TikTok due to the First Amendment. Okay. I served this country in the Army. I believe in our Constitution. I am 100% a supporter of free speech. And I understand there's 179 million or 180 million American users who feel like this ban is taking away that right. I will just say this is another topic for a Slick Talk episode, not a GMH episode. Unfortunately, TikTok is not an American company, so the Constitution and all of this stuff doesn't really go to their application here. But what does apply to this is anyone who tries to tell you that TikTok is the only way a creator or an influencer can meet their audience is 100% wrong, because TikTok is a platform just like Airbnb. If you look at Good Morning Hospitality as an example, we do not depend on Apple and Spotify and YouTube to support the show. Yes, we leverage them as much as we can, but we do everything in our power when we launch a retreat, launch a product like our coffee, or have our newsletter with exclusive content that you can't find on social, to do what we can to own our audience. Every time you make money or monetize a social media platform, and I'm only passionate about this because we work with creators every day. I'm in this ecosystem. It is not something that like I get to talk about on the show. So I'm sorry if I go on a little bit of a rant, but if every time you make money from those platforms, you're just paying rent to them. Okay. Like they're not a full like service platform for you to own your audience. And I'll also say this, every audience on every social media platform is different. Our YouTube listeners and subscribers versus our LinkedIn are very different in how they engage and how they consume the content. So I'll just say that. So depending on one platform like TikTok to be your main source of influence or business or building an audience is where you messed up. And it's the same thing for short-term rental operators or hospitality brands in general. Anytime you depend on an OTA to be your source of revenue, like Airbnb or Booking.com or Expedia, you're missing the point. You're missing it completely. And there's a bigger ecosystem. We have a big partnership with Send Squared at Hospitality FM, and I've seen the power of what owning your audience can do, not just with our side of things, but with an operator. They showed me $1 million month revenue stream from one company that did nothing on Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, ever. They sent 3 email blasts and they showed me the revenue tied to every single one. And that, my friends, is where the ownership comes into the best power. I would rather make $1 million month revenue from owned audience that I've collected over the years rather than a $10,000 a month check from TikTok or YouTube that doesn't even tell me any more information about my subscribers or my listeners than the platforms allow. So I think it's very short-sighted for everyone to be thinking that the ban is going to be the biggest, like, craziest, horrible thing that's ever happened to them. Because guess what? MySpace disappeared, Vine disappeared. All these social media platforms have their life cycles, and there's always going to be another one. And anytime these platforms change, you're at their mercy of the algorithm change, the way the product is displayed, or the way discoverability is. So again, use them to your best advantage, but you should never have to depend on it. And that's my rant. Thanks for attending my slick talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I understand why people were freaking out for whatever reason, but um, I think it parallels to the sophistication of in this case, like, content creators, and you can parallel that to people who are operators or hosts and their level of sophistication. So if you're just on Airbnb and, like, that's a less sophisticated operator, right? And so they're only depending on that one revenue stream, and any changes to that will have dramatic consequences for them, which is just like here. Whereas if there's a more sophisticated social media creator, then they're probably on TikTok, Instagram, whatever else there is
100%.
these days. And, they're figuring out ways to bring their audience to, maybe they have a Shopify store or whatever it is, And so, I think, in terms of, like, how this directly impacts travel, I know a lot of people get their inspiration from TikTok, but people also get a lot of inspiration from Instagram. And just like you said, there will always be another, social media platform that pops up. I think that TikTok at this point is so enormous that there will be a buyer
100%.
that will come in and take it. So I don't think people need to really
If
freak
you,
out.
yeah,
But it should be a wake-up call for anyone who is really dependent on that. And especially, like, if you're a travel content creator, but you're only focusing on TikTok, this might be a good jolt to be like, okay, well, maybe I should be making YouTube shorts or whatever it is to expand the audience. I should be cultivating, making sure I own that audience and that they're not just handles on the social media platform. So, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm not seeing the full picture, but I don't think this is going to be horribly detrimental to travel, just because there's other ways to get your inspiration. There's other ways to connect with influencers and creators and brands that are in the space. So something else will, spawn out of this.
Yeah. And I used TikTok in the beginning days of COVID, but then I stopped, obviously due to the security concerns and data usage and the other things that I won't go into right now. But I do understand, like, it's a lot of creators on that platform. And this is kind of one of the things I've always been trying to not be unbiased with, is that a lot of the creators there are chasing virality. And the thing with virality, as we know, as we've been running the show for almost 5 years, virality only lasts for a very short period. It's a very quick cycle. And the way to really win in the content game is consistency. It's building out a brand. It's, again, owning your audience, doing everything in your power. It's taken us 5 years to build a GMH ecosystem that is now fully connecting dots and being able to do that. Like, it's not an easy practice. So again, it's like when people saw you can make $1 million a year on Airbnb. People chase that instant gratification, and then we see a lot of that fizzle out. I think with this might kind of fizzle out the virality chasers on TikTok, and hopefully the ones that stay. And once TikTok is acquired, and probably Mr. Beast or Elon Musk or someone's going to do that, because I've seen stuff on Twitter kind of go around, or X now. But it's gonna hopefully weed out that virality chaser, and hopefully the content creators that care about brand beyond chasing a viral post and showing your stats off on whatever. It's gonna really create a better sustainable ecosystem for those who want to build community, build a platform. And to be honest, I'm going to announce something maybe I shouldn't, and my team's going to get mad at me for. But there's a reason why Hospitality FM is building our own app. Like, we're not going to try to replace Spotify and Apple, but we're definitely wanting to own our audience more and own the data that Apple, Spotify, YouTube doesn't give us. So, for those, we're not going to convert all 7 million listeners that listen to Hospitality FM podcasts to the app anytime soon. But if we can convert a percentage, 1%, 2%, that's great for us. And that's great for our company. That makes us more sustainable in the long term. And it gives us better things to utilize. So anyways, not trying to go on a tangent, but that's my last thought, I promise. And then for anyone who wants to hear more, I will be doing a Slick Talk exclusive on this solo with no guests. So get ready.
If you want to hear Will's inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Unleashed.
I'm also putting together a chart because I've seen people say an STR business or hospitality business is not the same as a content business. And I'm about to prove you wrong. I'm going to create the same chart and just replace some of the words, and you'll see how they all work and tie together.
Well, I will say that one thing that is very different is like the very significant physical requirements for
other than that on a chart. Yes, on a chart, like the physical labor that you guys put into cleaning a unit and the man hours that it takes to edit a good piece of content for YouTube to hit or to like it can trade in hours, but not in labor, an actual human sweat equity. So I totally get that.
I'm interested to see your chart.
Yes, well, I'll post it on LinkedIn. And Jonathan Wicks, the platform created the appetite for this quick type of content. The appetite will be filled by something new regardless of TikTok. 100% agreed. People will find ways to consume things no matter what. And then DePeck, there should be more governance around TikTok instead of just banning it. Banning a product or service is not a solution. 100% agreed and love that. Shout out to Moyad as well. Hello, thanks for tuning into live. And that's it for the episode. We hit our 30-minute mark. We didn't get to go into other topics, which is kind of good because we had a few prepared, but not fully. Anyways, so how are you feeling for the week, Brandy, before we kind of wrap up the show?
Oh, good. We're getting ready. I mean, New Orleans is about to get hit with a snowstorm, which is just like, obviously that's not a city that's like prepared for that kind of thing. As someone who grew up like on Lake Ontario in the Northeast, it's kind of funny when I see like southern cities like with 3 inches of snow. But I do understand that, obviously if you're not prepared for it, it's a big event. But we have Super Bowl coming up, and high season in Miami. So it's just kind of getting everything prepared for what is our high season. I know we're kind of like opposite of a lot of people. So
yeah, it's kind of nice though, because then when everyone's having their high season in summer, you guys are getting to maybe chill a little bit. So, yeah, it's a good trade-off. Yeah, and Jonathan, NOLA with snow, mind-blowing. Agreed. I also heard that Florida was going to get some, but I was like, how is that even possible? I didn't know that could even happen in a state like Florida. So
yeah, I mean, we've had some like flurries here since I've lived here, but yeah, it's not like snow.
Yeah, it's not like snow like Denver when we got like a foot and a half this weekend. But anyways, Brandy, I'm so glad that we got to do this together. Shout out to you and to me for being the dynamic duo today. Come on, let's go.
We did. And hopefully Michael's having a successful day with all his meetings, and when we miss him, and
we miss you, Michael, and we also miss Jamie. We could have invited Jamie on. I'm sure he would have jumped in. But it was nice to have a little time together solo on the pod. For the listeners and for the live viewers, as I was stating earlier, please like and subscribe to our newsletter. We would love for you to get the exclusive content from GMH a day before everybody else, as we are gearing up to be very more active in that space. And of course, follow us on all your other favorite platforms like Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, the list goes on. There's a reason why we're on all of them, because we leverage them. But you know what to do. We'll see you guys again next week. And don't forget, this Wednesday, Steve Turk and Sarah Dandishi are back for their first GMH Hotel Crew episode of 2025, as the LA wildfires actually made a big impact in our production schedule with that team. And so we're really excited for them to gear back up and have an amazing agenda for you guys as well. I know they've missed the broadcast as we've had to coordinate around some of that hectic chaos around the fire. So shout out to that team as they're coming back this week. All right. You guys know what to do. We'll see you all on the podcast again next Monday.